will he be recognizable when we see him next? How many offensive linemen over the years, recent years, from Matt Burke, Jordan Gross, Russell Okung, Nick Hardwick, guys who have those big bodies, the minute they stop playing, they don't need that big body anymore. And I say that because if you watch the Kelce documentary, Jason Kelce wasn't always. He didn't come out swole, as Byron Murphy told us last week. He was a thinner build.
Right.
And I think this evolution of himself and willing himself to find his niche in football as a center included creating and crafting and sculpting that body that wants to bust out of that uniform. Remember when you were a kid, they still, I'm sure the plant has not gone extinct. We used to mess around with those touch me nots, which was this like pea pod that was bursting, and if you touched it, the seeds flew everywhere, and it would be like particularly ripe and ready to burst. Like in his shirt, he's like a touch me not ready to bust. You know, it's so tight because he doesn't want to have his shirt held and thrown around by defensive linemen. But, you know, there's not a lot left to the imagination with his build, especially when he takes his shirt off at the playoff game.
Right.
But I got a feeling, and he's, you know, unless he's concerned that people just won't recognize him and they won't relate to him anymore, he's probably going to go the way of the offensive lineman that we see transition to, like, oh my God, who is that?
It'd be interesting. It will. You know, sometimes they get like that and they kind of, you know, O-line can kind of get stuck like that forever. A little bit like, man, I've made myself like this. This is the way I am now. My metabolism, whatever else, right? You know, you see it go usually one way or another, like other offensive linemen I've seen in my career, right? If they're 300 pounds, it's either like the next time I see them, I go, oh, shit, they're 380 pounds now. They've been enjoying life and doing whatever. Or it's more along the lines like you're talking about, the 300-pounder. Now you see him and go, damn, he's 255. Looks like a different human being, right? I would think, to your point, that Kelce's body is probably closer to his brother's body when totally natural, right? You know, Travis is naturally 6'5", 255, you know, doesn't work out like as far as let me sculpt and have huge muscles and all that. I would think Jason, next time we see him, he's in his 260s, maybe low 270s. I'll be interested to see what he does. And unless does have a sweet tooth and he does like drinking a ton of beer, which I wouldn't be shocked, then maybe he'll stay at that weight a little longer than we'd expect.
Yeah, I mean, for some of these guys, when they got to put on the offensive lineman body, it's like, oh, it's a lot of work to eat all this food and drink all this beer. Some guys are like, hey, I kind of like this. And I'm not going back.
Yeah, right. Or their offensive line body, you know, as I've told stories to you before, is they're actually dieting to be 315 or 320. You know, there's those guys, right? I mean, every team I was ever on a Friday morning.
Trent Brown.
Right. There was offensive linemen who, it's 7 a.m., and the strength coaches are out by the weight scale, and they're waiting for the 5 or 6 guys on the team, right? And usually 2 or 3 of them are offensive linemen where, they better be under 320 today for the Friday practice or they're going to get fined and lose money, right? So it can go either way. I would think he's going to go the other way, but I do, you know, he does like beer. We know that. He's has let that out of the bag there. So we'll see where that goes.
We're going to see him everywhere. We're going to see him in commercials. We're going to see him with a network. It's just a question of when, where, and how that process will play out in the coming weeks. Usually the networks have their lineups locked in by May because in May, that's when the process unfolds where the networks go unveil their various lineups to advertisers in the hopes of getting them to support that network's lineup. And when you have a marketable guy like Jason Kelce, the sooner you get him under contract, the better. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.